common wisdom and the unimpeachable guidance of the diabetes pyramid, which was designed by the Coca-Cola Corporation and cereal manufacturers for our government, would have us believe that the key to a healthy microbiome is eating lots and lots of fiber and staying away from that nasty, awful red meat, which people supposedly have pounds and pounds of clogging up their colons. Yet Socrates once said the only true wisdom is knowing that you know nothing, meaning you should take nothing for granted, in spite of what you think you know, and what you have been told to believe.
He's got the power of ignorance.
And with the ignorance he's got, that makes him one of the most powerful men that's ever lived. Harness your stupidity, sir. Employ your witlessness. Use your empty-headed, simplistic moron mind and find a solution.
Got a whole lot of milk. Can't fix the car without a whole lot of milk.
If there's one phrase that annoys me, it's people saying they have lactose intolerance just because they get digestive issues with dairy. In reality, even those who are lactose intolerant can drink some milk daily with no issues. Lactose intolerance comes into play when you drink a large amount of milk at once, and it will make you sick and nauseous throughout your whole body. This can also happen if you're not lactose intolerant, if you drink quite a lot of milk all at once. I know someone who drank a whole gallon of milk very fast, and after that he never wanted milk again. It made him sick just to think about it. Now sure, frail vegan digestive systems can't deal with dairy, or meat, or plants, or anything but juice really, because their microbiome is such a mess and their gut is so leaky. The same goes for people who eat too much junk food, which includes bread, which is not only a junk food in and of itself, but is full of all kinds of ingredients that cause problems. Your gut microbiome is bound to be a disaster, and the thin and delicate junctures of the gut will also be leaky, and this will cause huge digestive and autoimmune issues. Decades ago, America started shipping powdered milk and eggs to Africa to ease their famines at the time. Milk was an unaccustomed food for many of them, and initially the recipients had lots of digestive issues. However, scientists did some research and they found that after a few weeks of drinking milk, their gut microbiome started to become filled with probiotic bacteria such as bifidobacterium, and their digestive issues went completely away. While fiber is constantly promoted as a prebiotic material, lactose is actually the ultimate prebiotic material. The L in L. reuteri, for example, stands for lactobacillus, meaning it is from a family of lactofermenting bacteria. This is also true of L. rhamnosus, L. acidophilus, and so on. Most of the probiotic bacteria that don't come from this family can also ferment lactose. While you can take these as supplements daily and get many benefits that way, if the environment for them is wrong, they will die off in time. If the environment is right, you will not have to take probiotics at all. Eventually, they'll just find your way into your innards on their own.
Who's up inside ya? Finding an entrance where they can.
That's exactly what happened to those malnourished African villagers. They never took probiotics, they just drank milk, and eventually the right kind colonized their gut. However, if you eat a bunch of sugar and bread, a tiny bit of lactose added to the equation is not going to do much for your digestion, because the bad bacteria and fungi just love bread and sugar, and if enough is present, it's going to outcompete the good guys who like lactose. While lactose has some surprising benefits that are ignored by most influencers and doctors, it is far from all that milk has to offer. For example, lactoferrin is a protein within milk that has even more amazing benefits. It is immunomodulatory, meaning it can damp down reactions that are not supposed to happen, but without interfering with the immune reactions that the body needs to be healthy. This can help the body from entering into a cytokine storm from a serious infection, for example, and it will also have a great effect on suppressing inflammation in the gut. People with gut problems tend to shun all dairy, But little do they know this is one of the most effective ways to ease your digestive issues over time, but it may take a little time to adjust to it. When milk is raw, it will already be full of probiotic bacteria, and this will make the process much easier. These bacteria have a broad range of ways they can help the body, especially when it comes to indigestion and gut issues. Even so, some of the cultivated strains that have been specifically selected may have more benefits than these random bacteria, so they could still be worth supplementing, and that's why I make my L-reuteri yogurt instead of just taking kefir or making regular yogurt. Milk also contains orotic acid, which is believed to be the reason that milk is very helpful for recovering from a gout attack. Orotic acid helps the body excrete uric acid, and is also involved in absorbing or rejecting minerals. Zinc orotate and magnesium orotate are probably the most absorbable forms of these minerals. For example, magnesium orotate is very expensive, but I take 200 milligrams of zinc orotate daily. It's also important for healing in a wide variety of other issues. Milk also contains hyaluronic acid, one of the few natural sources, in fact. This has many benefits in the body as well, especially for the skin and gut. It is a structural component of the gut itself, and thus it's very helpful for gut repair if you have a leaky gut already, and almost everyone today does. Milk also has some EPA and DHA, and if it's grass-fed it will have some vitamin D and K2. It also has B12, which keeps away anemia, and it also keeps your brain from shrinking over time. It also has some palmitoleic acid, which moisturizes the skin, and this includes the gut. And it also has many other benefits, and this is going to help quite a bit with gut issues. In fact, it has everything needed by the human body, and that is unsurprising since milk is the only nutrition that calves get. This includes vitamin A, which for some odd reason is simply never mentioned in discussions of gut and skin health, even though it's one of the most important elements for moisturizing the skin, maintaining its microbiome, and reducing the sebum that leads to blemishes. And that's also how it helps your eyes. It keeps your eyes moist. It's one of the most important things that vitamin A does for your eyes. Plant-based fanatics will leap to point out that some of these acne-causing bacteria feed on oils to some extent, but they don't have any idea that their terrible skin quality is due to the dry skin caused by a plant-based diet drying it out. This in turn is what causes the body to secrete oils to try and correct this, and this causes them to get backed up and get clogged pores and so on, which leads to blemishes. Lack of real vitamin A will lead to this dry and cracked skin, which wrinkles and breaks very easily and leads to a pathogenic skin microbiome and ultimately to blemishes. Beta carotene does not convert easily to vitamin A in the body, and when grown with modern methods, even organic produce will have little or no vitamin content anyhow, and this is due to the soil depletion, the fact that they're overcrowded, grown in very small plots with a high density, and they're picked early so they don't ever have a chance to fully develop. Dairy can do a lot to address this issue, which is also going on in the intestines of most people today as well. If you have trouble with digesting it, just work it in slowly, and keep in mind you may not have any issues at all if you can get your hands on raw, full-fat dairy. If you've been eating zero or very few carbs, your microbiome won't be able to handle any kind of carbs, let alone lactose. But the bacteria that thrive on lactose can also take care of the other carbs in the diet. Just keep in mind if you have too much of those junk carbs like bread and sugar, then eventually the more pathogenic simple organisms that cause SIBO are going to take over your whole gut, and then you're going to be right back where you started. So a little milk daily might be a good way to bulletproof your microbiome if you're on a low carb diet. But don't think you can eat a bunch of junk food and have a healthy microbiome, because you're not going to. While fiber is relentlessly promoted as a gut health panacea, the actual science says otherwise. While the bacteria that digest fiber produce some short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, testing shows these short-chain fatty acids just don't stay in the body because they actually get sucked up by the fiber itself and they ultimately get flushed right down the toilet, as you can see for yourself. Don't worry, I mean, you can see that in the study on the screen. I didn't film it or anything like that. Butyrate is also somewhat overrated, and while it may have some health benefits, that's only because it's going to convert into acetic acid, which is a process that requires the expenditure of vitamins, by the way. And acetic acid is the most common short-chain fatty acid in the microbiome, and also the main one produced by all these probiotic bacteria I was talking about earlier. Acetic acid or vinegar is pure energy that can be directly burned inside mitochondria with no processing. In fact, your body splits up everything into acetic acid before it burns it in the mitochondria. But when it's already in the form of acetic acid, it skips a lot of these steps that have a lot of harmful byproducts, or that the cell may not be able to perform because it's damaged. And this has an endless array of health benefits, including allowing these damaged cells to go into apoptosis instead of eventually becoming cancerous. It also directly interferes with and kills off the pathogenic gut bacteria, which is one of the main ways that probiotic bacteria provide health benefits. There are some supposed probiotics like Akkermansia that feed off fiber, but they also feed off and destroy your own gut mucus, which is a very important part of your gut that protects your intestines from damage during digestion and prevents constipation. In fact, this form of bacteria was never a part of the microbiome of man until modern times. And neither was most of the bacteria in our gut today, and most of it causes a great deal of damage to us.
Well, unfortunately, we have Mountain Dew mouth in 18-month-olds as well, and we have the same diseases in adults as we have in children, and this is a marker for the problem. Now, the thing to know about dental caries is that this is a relatively new phenomenon. If you look at fossils from various times going back, way back into the Paleolithic and Mesozoic eras, dental caries were almost non-existent, and you can see that basically it was a pretty darn low frequency and prevalence. It's only since the Industrial Revolution that things really took off. And there we go. In 1934, perhaps the most seminal, to this day, symposium on dental caries occurred in New York City. And there were two camps. There was the camp of hygiene, that is, clean teeth do not decay, and they had some heavy hitters at the time, including Thaddeus Hyatt and Maurice William. These were big names in the field in those days. And then there was the people who thought nutrition mattered. Okay, so if you will, team nutrition. And we had some big names there as well, including the ever-present Weston Price. And to this day, there's a Weston Price Foundation that is pushing the concept of diet and chronic disease. So we had these two groups duking it out. What causes dental caries? So there were the people who said that clean teeth do not decay. Well, let's look at what was in our mouths. And you can actually look at the DNA footprinting of the various organisms that have been found on fossils. And what you can see is that the phyla in the mouth have changed over the course of time. And in particular, I want you to alert you to this blue one. You'll notice that way back in our hunter-gatherer days, this blue one, Firmicutes, was actually relatively common in the mouth. Now it's pretty much gone. Well, where is Firmicutes today? It's in our intestine, and it's actually one of the bad guys in terms of making cytokines that drive chronic metabolic disease. When we talk about the microbiome, when we talk about the bad bacteria, we're mostly talking about Firmicutes. Well, it used to be a denizen of our mouths, and now it's a denizen of our intestines. It got chased down there. And if you notice, also proteobacteria didn't even exist back then, and now it's taking up most of our mouths. So our flora have changed as we've evolved, and the question is why? And the particular, this guy over here in purple has been a major thorn in dentists' side. He is known as strep mutans, and this is the primary driver of dental caries. But it wasn't even part of our mouths. So if you look at bacterial diversity in the mouth, you'll notice that it was relatively constant all the way through, and it's only from medieval to modern times that bacterial diversity has actually gone down as strep mutans over here has made its ugly presence felt.
While studies have been performed attempting to prove that fiber helped with serious issues like fissures, hemorrhoids, and bleeding, the opposite effects were found. In reality, it was proven that animal products and a fiberless, high-fat diet cured these problems outright.
This was a case-control study. So in this study, 63 patients who presented with constipation were recruited, and high and low fibre diets were compared in these patients. And this also included a zero fibre diet that required the complete cessation of all vegetables, cereals, fruits, wholemeal breads, and rice. So this graph here represents the percentage of study participants before the study suffering from each of the symptoms listed on the right side. So you can see, before the study started, all of them had constipation and strain opening their bowels, and a number also experienced bloating, bleeding, and pain. And when the study participants, those who went on a high fibre diet, we can see that the proportion suffering symptoms actually increased, especially bloating. So then there was a reduced fibre arm. And what you can see here is that those on the reduced fibre diet actually demonstrated a modest reduction in symptoms. So the question is, what happened to those, the majority of those in the study, who had zero fibre in their diet? This is not a mistake. I didn't just forget to put something in the slide there. Now, not one patient on the zero fibre diet had any symptoms. That's quite astonishing, really. And these findings were highly statistically significant, highly. They weren't due to random chance. Now, just out of interest, every single person in the low zero fibre group ended up having one bowel action per day, every day. How did this compare to those in the high fibre group? One bowel action on average every 6.83 days. Still think that fibre is good for constipation?
Dairy, and in particular milk, are given a great deal of blame when it comes to digestive issues. Small amounts of milk and any amount of dairy can be consumed, even by lactose intolerant people with no issues, so long as their microbiome is used to dairy products. In fact, lactose is the healthiest carb by far when it comes to the microbiome, because the more pathogenic gut bacteria can't really make much use of it, but the probiotic bacteria thrive on it. If your diet had lactose as the only carb, then your gut health would eventually become immaculate over time. Just beware if you have issues with dairy that introducing it slowly will be much easier. Full fat is also important as this prevents constipation, which can be promoted by the casein in dairy, which forms into clumps. In today's mixed up world where people tend to consume low fat dairy, if they take any at all, then this is not going to be great for your digestion. Combine that with some wheat and sugar, as in when you have a pizza, and you're going to have a recipe for bloating and constipation, and that's what most people are experiencing today because that's exactly what junk food is going to do. Milk has endless nutrients that are directly helpful for skin and gut health. This includes hyaluronic acid, palmitoleic acid, lactoferrin, and much more. Lactoferrin reduces gut inflammation and also acts as an immunomodulator that damps down improper immune reactions, and it amplifies the useful ones. And not just in the gut, but all through the whole body. Lactoferrin is a somewhat delicate protein, so you will get much more of it from raw dairy, and it is probably one of the most important benefits of raw dairy. Lactoferrin supplements are also available today, And that might be something that is good for people who just can't get raw dairy or for whom it's very, very expensive. Oh, and before I forget, there's one more thing that you have to worry about with milk, and that's the pasteurization, especially the ultra high heat treatment. Because the more pasteurized it is, the more it's going to destroy the proteins. And this is going to cause a lot of autoimmune issues if you have a leaky gut, because these weird proteins can get into your body and then your body just doesn't know what to do with them except for attack them. So that's why I've stopped using grocery store milk, and I'm going to get all of my milk from Harmony Acres from now on, no affiliation. I had thought that the closest place that I could get raw milk was about an hour away, but actually apparently they'll deliver it into my town a few miles away from me if I want to. So that works out pretty convenient. And they're not in every state in the United States, but they're in most of them, or at least quite a few of them. I actually found that it's cheaper to go there than it is to get the half gallon of organic grass-fed milk, except it turns out that all of the organic grass-fed milk that I can get in the grocery store today has that stupid ultra heat pasteurization. So basically it's just destroyed. Like all the lactoferrin is going to be gone, and a lot of the rest of the protein is going to be converted into weird stuff. It's sort of like how when you irradiate food, like I was saying in the last video, and it causes so many issues that nobody really tells you about because they don't want you to know that. So I would try and get raw milk if you can, and if it's raw, then it's almost certainly not going to be irradiated either. So you're not going to have to worry about that issue either. And it's also going to have some probiotic content in it if you just drink it without doing anything to it. So it's going to be even more easy to digest. While fiber is promoted as a microbiome enhancer, there is simply no science to support these claims. In reality, when adding fiber to the diet in experiments, even more issues were caused. An apple is going to be better for the microbiome than applesauce or wheat because it's more intact and it digests more slowly. But the fiber itself does nothing for your gut health, and if you're adding more fiber in just to get the fiber, you're going to cause even more problems. Milk and dairy can do a great deal to create a healthy microbiome. Just make sure to slowly introduce them if you have issues, and to use full-fat milk and cheese, and preferably raw dairy, as it will be much more digestible and have more of the lactoferrin, which damps down inflammation in the gut. So don't listen to the insane people of the world who demonize dairy. Milk can help you to live your very best life.
Grab it! Squeeze the milk of life into your dirty glass and drink it warm. I'll tell you what, if death does happen, everybody, then I submit, very presence of death is what makes life all the more precious.
And I want to say Merry Christmas again to everyone, and also Happy New Year, and thanks so much to all of you who have been with me for the whole year, and some of you even before that. A lot of people make resolutions for the new year, and a good one to make would be to do a 36-hour fast every week like I do, or maybe even 2 if you want to lose a little weight, and to do occasional 72 to 96-hour fasts. I try to do one every month, though to be honest it looks like I won't be doing it this December because I'm doing so much travel with family and stuff like that. But I did do my 36s every week at least. But if everyone on Earth who could just did one 72-hour fast per year, I think it would make a very significant change in human health worldwide, and this would be one of the best things we could do to make America healthy again, as it were. And that's because it has amazing effects in regenerating your white blood cells, including your delicate T cells. It also releases stem cells in the body, which are also required to make these T cells, by the way. And it restores the thymus over time as well by releasing growth hormone. And this is going to have many positive benefits in your body. January is a very good time for fasting, and it's also a good time to slide into a fast right after a holiday meal or a big New Year's celebration. And like last year, I want to remind you that one of the best things that you can do while fasting is to watch videos on fasting. I watch a lot of Dr. Fung videos, or at least I used to. I've pretty much seen them all at this point. And I even watch a lot of my own videos while I'm fasting. And by the way, I recently had to delete my fasting playlist and rebuild it. So now it's in a little bit better order, but I lost some of the videos from other people. It's because the platform just kind of makes it hard to do things that I want, and sometimes stuff just seems to stop working. And I gave this reminder last New Year's, so it's becoming a bit of a tradition. I also mentioned then that I had about 100 videos to watch, and hilariously I still only have about 100 videos to watch, because many of the older ones have been deleted or they've just been redone. But I'm doing less and less of that now because the format and audio quality is a lot better, and I have new equipment, and I've spent most of the money that I get from the channel actually on buying new stuff for the channel, and that's helped out a lot on that front. And that also makes it much quicker for me to edit. And, you know, I gotta say the videos are actually pretty good now for the most part. I'm pretty happy with the quality these days, and I just want to work on getting more videos out for people to watch. And the people watching the videos seem to agree too. They seem to think that they're great. In fact, everyone who I haven't banned seems to think they're absolutely fantastic.
I loved it. I'm going to see it again and again.
The critics agree. Frank Rich of the Times says, I loved it. I'm going to see it again and again.